What to do about whether to cancel your score, assuming that the LSAT does not go well for you on test day, or you think it didn't go well. Well, how do we know? What's the difference? Not always easy to tell, especially when you are so close to the problem that you have tunnel vision and you can't see straight. Once you walk out of the LSAT, your brain is going to be fried. And if you've done a 5-section exam, or maybe even gone really nuts and done a 6-section exam, you know what your brain being fried feels like. And you're not in the best situation to make an evaluation of where you stand. So for that reason, I would say don't make any sudden moves. You don't need to cancel your score right away. You've got something like 6 calendar days from the day of the exam to cancel your score. And there is no benefit to canceling the day of or the day following versus 3 days later. As long as you don't forget and you set a reminder for yourself, and I'm guessing you probably won't forget because the LSAT's a big deal, you will always have the chance to come back later with a fresh perspective and see where you stand. So for that reason, I would say, first of all, just don't do anything drastic in the moment. What you can do is take a reasoned assessment of how the test went. And I want you to walk through the following questions. First of all, were you fully prepared? Did you do everything that you reasonably could have done? Or is it like the day of the exam, you suddenly realize that for the past 2 to 3 months, you've been doing everything wrong. You've been working out of some awful off-the-shelf prep book from the bookstore that doesn't even use real LSAT questions, and the store employee recommended it because they get product placement from fees from the manufacturer or something like that. If that's the book you've been using and it was using fake questions, then yes, you've been doing it wrong. You could probably improve your score drastically by taking a wholly different course of prep. But if, on the other hand, you've been prepping in a reasonably solid way, you've been using well-reviewed LSAT materials from trusted sources, you've been using actual LSAT problems, and you've been getting advice from people that you consider to be experts, maybe you've even been taking their courses or using their study plans, and you found that it just fell apart for you for one vague reason or another. Now, let's define fall apart. Is it that you suddenly forgot everything and were at a loss for the entire 35 minutes per section? Or is it that you encountered a couple of difficult problems and weren't entirely sure how to handle them and maybe didn't answer them as perfectly as you could have? If you just have this vague sense of dread because you didn't answer everything 100% correctly, then maybe you don't need to cancel. Maybe you could take a couple of days and think, it might not have gone perfectly. Maybe it's a couple of points lower than I wanted, but honestly, I'm not sure. I'm not sure how it went. If that's the case for you, then I would not cancel. I would not cancel. And the reason for that is that there are many people who have gotten great scores, but they had that vague sense of dread right afterwards. And it's because the test is scary, your adrenaline is running, your heart's racing, and that fight or flight kicks in, and it feels like it was 10 hours of agony, and then it also feels like it went by in the flash of an instant all at the same time. And you walk out of there sweaty and drained. That's the situation that everyone's in. Even when it doesn't count and it's just a practice run, that it can still happen. It's normal. But if that's all you're feeling, I would keep the score. Because law schools do not average multiple LSAT scores. This is a myth, and it's one of the biggest myths that I still hear from students, even though law schools have not been averaging multiple scores for well over 10 years now. It was back in 2006 when the American Bar Association changed their policy from averaging multiple scores and requiring law schools to submit all the scores of their students and calculate an average, which was then what US News and World Report used for their ever important rankings. And it's funny because nobody reads the US News for anything else, but they suddenly think they're the most important source when it comes to rankings. Other places do rankings too, and one of the biggest things you want to look for rankings on is employment outcomes, not their highest average LSAT scores. But anyway, I digress. The point is that law schools don't average multiple scores anymore. They have not done so since 2006. And any school that tells you they're averaging multiple scores is lying to you. And I don't really know why they're lying to you, but I think it's because they want to seem more holistic, and because maybe even they themselves don't really know what's going on, because old habits die hard, at least when it comes to the speeches they give law school applicants. But believe me when I tell you that the law schools are not averaging multiple scores because they have no incentive to do so. All they care about is the rankings. That's why they keep working to solicit as many applications as they possibly can. That's why they now want to open it up to the GRE and get rid of the LSAT requirement entirely, which is totally absurd, but that's a topic for another conversation. The point is that they are not averaging multiple scores. They have no reason to do so. And so you have no reason to worry about getting a score that is slightly below what you were hoping for. Even if it was 5 or 10 points lower than what you were hoping for, you can always retake, and there's no limit on retaking. So this would not be the end of the world for you. So don't worry. The only time that you should cancel is if something went horribly, horribly wrong, like the person next to you vomited on you, or there was a marching band outside, or the fire alarm went off, or the proctor didn't even give you 30 minutes per section or something. Those are cases where maybe you should cancel. Maybe LSAC will give you a free retake. But ultimately, retaking, not a big deal. Cancellations, not really worth canceling. If you don't want to take it when you're already scheduled for it and it's coming up very soon, then you could withdraw. That is an option for you. And if the LSAT is more than a couple of weeks away for you, you could postpone your test date. And I think they charge you a lesser fee, or let you just pay a small difference to change to the next test date instead. And that's nice. They get a little bit less of your money. If you withdraw, I think they keep all your money. But either way, it's only a small drop in the big scheme of what your law school tuition will be. So I wouldn't worry too much about the fee.